So, good afternoon, Karen.
Hello. Hi,
Yeah,
Sylvia.
thank you so much for taking some time out to spend with us here,
Mm.
and having what seems to be such an important chat about what's going on
Yeah.
financially.
Yes, thank you for
Um,
having me.
yeah, it's absolute pleasure. But let's start, Karen, a bit by I'll leave it to you to introduce yourself and say a little
Mhm,
bit about what you do
mhm.
and who Karen Burke is.
Okay, well, Karen Burke. Um, I was trained as an accountant many, many years ago. So done over 25 years in the corporate world. Since moved on to become a life coach, personal life coach. And over probably, well, 2006 actually. And since then, always wanted to run businesses. Met my partner around that time and we started the MindBody Therapy. He had already had the name, but we wanted a literal center. So at first we started a virtual center, then we had the literal center. This is the second place that we have now, which is we lease. And we have a dedicated space of 6 therapy treatment rooms and an
Okay.
infrared sauna as well. This is in Forest Hill, London. And we also, at the same time, we're doing quite a lot of community work. So people said, oh, in order to continue the work we were doing with carers, why not start a social enterprise where we could get funding to continue some of the work there. We were giving them a bit of relief in the sense of physical therapies. So we started that as well, T4H. And so both have been going for around 13 years. And then also we probably in the lockdown, but before that I had written a book called Power Up for the Year.
Mhm.
And also during the lockdown, we started to write another book, myself and Devon. And it was called The Calming Book of Healing Hugs. And that was quite significant because obviously at that time during lockdown, we couldn't get hugs, from people that were outside our family home.
Mhm.
And I think we were trying to tie that in with the centre because at the centre, we do believe over the years, people have come in and as soon as they come in, their shoulders might be like that. But as soon as they come in, they go,
Right.
and that's the healing hug we wanted to be able to provide for people at the centre as soon as they come in. And since then, obviously going through the other side of COVID and continue with the businesses, a lot of people are saying, well, how do you manage? How do you cope? How do you keep going? So we wrote the Building Life Muscles book, which just earlier this year, 2022, came out. And we haven't even really done the full promotion on everything yet, but I think it was quite important because these are the questions people are asking. How do you keep going? What should I do in this situation? It's quite a practical book. So I wanted to make it as real as possible and the different phases of life as well. So it talks about, when you're in your youth, when you're, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, the different scenarios and the different kind of resilience that you might need. It talks about work, it talks about business. But in there, it's really hinging on the mind, body, soul, and spirit. Talks about the whole aspects of our body and how the mind affects the body, basically, as our company, MindBody Therapy. And then, evolving from that, a lot of people over the last year or so have been asking me to do some financial coaching. And that's where I said, well, actually, I'm just putting the two together, which is an accountant and coach. And because of the things I do for ourselves personally, but also with the businesses, it was a natural progression to do some of that work as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's pause there for a minute
Mhm.
because you're racing ahead there, and
Yes.
I just want to, to have a bit of time to absorb some of what you said. In terms of the books you've written, these are available. Are they
Yes,
on?
they are. They're available on Amazon, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So what we'll do is towards the end of our chat, I'll get the details from you and
Mhm.
post those because I think they really sound interesting.
Yeah.
Um, you trained as an accountant.
Yeah.
You've moved on obviously to expand your repertoire, and I mean it's lovely that you and your partner can do this together. That's
Mhm.
fantastic.
Mhm.
Um, but you're not saying that you've closed the door to accountancy. You're actually
No, not at all.
learning
Yeah.
to. Okay,
I still
all right.
do all the accounting for the businesses and for a few people as well. So yeah.
Yes, if you're there.
Yes.
So,
Well, I keep saying they can't afford me, but I keep doing the books.
oh my God! But before we go into more detail as far as that's concerned, what's your sense of what's going on in the country and the world at the moment? We've just come. Well, have we come out of COVID? Perhaps not. But give me some of your analysis of what's gone on over the last 2-3 years, for many of us financially, and otherwise, because you're also interested in mental health too.
Yes, very much so. So it's been a big mental strain on everybody for the last few years. People in all different scenarios, which I think the government has realised by them doing, obviously helping a lot of businesses with the furlough scheme, etc. But there were, elements of people that did not get any help from the government, and they fell within the gap and things like that. So there's a lot of people that had to get second jobs. So a lot of people that were fine, getting paid and working from, not doing any work and getting paid to stay at home. There were other people that were scrambling like ourselves to keep the business alive, keep talking to our clients. Others that are big corporations that, people was working from home, nurses, doctors, etc. It never stopped. So I think the different tranches of people that there are, it affects everyone so differently. Even listening to LBC today, they were talking about over 50s, how they're not necessarily going back into the workforce on mass. But then other people are saying, well, no, there's part-time mums that's all they can do. So I think there's been a realization that there are all of us experiencing something, but at different levels and at different times of our lives. And I think it's affected all of us at different times and at different levels, in the sense of financially and mentally as well. I think it's a lot of scaremongering that has been taking place, especially when all that was on the news is the cost of living, but also the high energy prices. Obviously, the government has tried to do something now to put a cap on the prices, but all of our energy bills have gone up. All of our cost of living has gone up in the sense of buying petrol, buying food, so this is affecting all of us in the UK. I think it's been a time for people to take stock, see where they are in life, particularly during lockdown as well. A lot of people took stock, and whether or not they wanted to continue in their jobs, or whether or not they wanted to start new businesses, whether or not they wanted to just stop working and look after their family. So a lot of big decisions were made during this time, and a lot of big decisions are still being made because there's a knock-on effect. And I think a lot of people are taking stock of their whole life, their family, obviously their finances, their mental state as well, because even today I heard someone, an LBC, a guy was saying that he's had enough of the corporate, and basically he started doing business and he can work when he wants to work. He's in a privileged position. He decided during COVID to pay off his mortgage, draw down his pension early, and only work when he wants to work. And he would never go back into the corporate strain, the mental strain that takes place where you're not your own boss, or where if it's a kind of a toxic environment, which is where I was in around 2006-7, in the sense of working for RBS. It was the banking industry, and we all know what happened in 2008. So it's in the sense of the banking crash. So it was a toxic environment. So I know exactly what he meant, in the sense of you felt like your spirit was dying literally each day, because there were too many egos, too many unnecessary managers in place, too many bearing down on you for no reason. You were doing your job great, but they still wanted more from you. So that was like a trial by fire for a lot of us at that right then, working for RBS Insurance at the time. And a lot of us eventually did move on to places where the training that we got, it was very stringent. It was very process driven. I guess that led us to still, a lot of us, to get good paying jobs still, but doing much less for smaller companies. And I think that's where a lot of people are at now, especially over 50, whereby they're reviewing everything and seeing, what do I do now? Where do I go now?
I mean, I think the other reality is that people are really tired. And,
totally,
quite often in some of these environments, there are far fewer of you doing more and more and more and more work.
Yes, yeah.
And I think that's really pushed a lot of people to step off, because it's like, this is going to kill me.
Yeah. During lockdown, we were doing quite a few staff workshops, where we converted to doing workshops on Zoom. And we're doing, things like managing uncertainty, stress management, relaxation and breathing techniques. And we found that a lot of staff were actually working a lot harder and longer hours at home, and they were finding it very hard to switch off at the end of the day. So we were just giving them some beginning and end of work techniques to breathe, and use, whether it's essential oils or having a shower, whatever it is, to switch off and literally turn the computer off. You know, at 8 o'clock, some people are still turning the computer on, checking their emails. And this is, you know, for our balance of life, for our mental headspace, for the time that we have with our family. It's just not good enough. It's just not on. And for businesses to expect that from people, to be working beyond all the time. Fine if you've got a project or deadline and things like that, obviously if you're in crisis, but to be doing that all the time, it's just not sustainable.
Yeah, a recipe for absolute disaster.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's your sort of sense making and your analysis of what we've well, in a very brief way, I guess, we've kind of been through over the past couple of years, and where, and to some extent where we're at now.
Yes.
What I'm hearing from you.
Yeah.
In terms of your clients, your customers, your punters, what are the messages? What are the big messages you're getting from that cohort of people?
From people in general who walk into the centre, or people that we see out there on the community hubs. And as you said, people are tired. Some people are not very well at all. Others are struggling with, if it's physical or mental health, to get the help that they need. Others are doing okay, you know, but there's a extra pressure to keep that going. Others that they've had changing situations even within our own teams. There are people of 50 plus that their parents passing, and also having long-term illnesses that they have to go and care for them, and go to a different country and sort out their you know, the property and things like that. So there's a lot of that going on at the minute. Is people that have had to sort out their parents' houses and, you know, their home care and things like that. Even
is that the sort of stuff you talk about in your book?
It's not actually. I think it would talk about the stamina and the resilience that people need when they reach 60s, 70s, in order to possibly keep going, to keep their mental state going, to keep activities going, so that they're not falling into, there's a lot of isolation out there still. I think people are still recovering from being isolated from COVID and not fully come out. It's happening more now because there's a lot of community groups now coming together, but there's some people that are still saying, well, they haven't gone back to swimming, they haven't gone back to going down to the gardening centre once a week, they haven't gone back to that other group that they used to go to, you know, twice a week.
They don't want to, or they can't?
Some don't, some can't due to illness. Others can't due to if it's going to cost them a little bit more. You know, particularly gyms as well. Some of them are not doing special rates for seniors, and others, because they've lost the momentum to want to go out, come out of their house to go and do that. It's a lot of that now as well, that it's hard to come out. But at the end of the day, there are people that do just want to come in and lie on the couch and fall asleep because you know, it's mental and physical strain of working hard, looking after their families, young families, older families, such a mix of people coming through, even young people as well that may not have any responsibilities per se, but they're feeling the anxiety of the world, as it were. They're feeling anxiety of what's coming out of the news.
And yeah, as you're speaking there, I'm thinking, you know, and there are a lot of us who are so lethargic now, and I think that probably is probably a legacy from the whole COVID thing, because I think people, when that whole thing was going on, it was absolutely devastating.
Yes,
it must leave something with people. You know, what's the point?
Yeah.
You know, what's the meaning of life? What's the point? And I'm sure there's an air of that.
Yes, there is. Yeah, totally. That, along with people just being getting angrier quicker and being shorter with people, in the sense of their stress levels are high, and they have got
them.
Yes, it doesn't take much to trigger people at the moment. Even if they come to a lovely space like the centre, we notice a shift in certain people that came in and they were very short with the front of house staff, and there was no reason for it. And yet, obviously, when you look back, or if you did delve in, or if the therapist, you know, happened to be talking to them, there's reason behind it, but you can't tell that straight away. And I think in general, even on the roads, people driving, the strain of driving these days, in the sense of 20 miles per hour and, you know, the 30 miles an hour thing, road rage, I think everything's just increased. People are just shorter, you know, short temper.
Wow, good points, really. And I think that will resonate with so many people. I certainly recognize it, and I recognize it in myself too, so I'm sure that will resonate. Okay, well, thanks for sharing. And then let's move on then to some of your sort of ideas around finance, financial management. I know that you work with businesses, but you presumably also have something to say about personal finances. But give us a bit of your insights around sort of business finance. What's your take on what's going on, and any thoughts or strategies, or just your thoughts, really? Just share that to begin with, and then we'll move on to the personal.
I think it's a time to, as I said before, probably take stock and review. I can only speak probably from my experience, and I'm not an independent financial advisor, but I've always been interested in looking after finances. The way my dad, mum and dad, grew us up really well. So it was always save some, spend some, and give some.
And you listened.
Yes, we did. Save some, spend some, and give some. So going way back to like the post office accounts where, you had the book, you had to go to post office, the blue book, and you had to go to the post office and literally put your cash in, and literally go to post office and take your cash out. So and piggy bank days, I'm going back to those days, whereby I used to put some aside all the time. So I think it's that same ethos that if there's a lot of people, they've not been taught this in school, might have not been taught it with their parents, or grandparents or guardians. But I would say it's a time for taking stock. Look at everything that you have coming in, look at everything that you have going out. A lot of people, when I do sessions with people, they don't want to look at their bank statements, and a lot of time it is, you do want to bury your head in the sand, and there's a time for that. You just close the covers, you cry, you do your thing, right. Ball and whatever else,
I don't want to know.
I don't want to know. Don't tell me. But there's also a time, especially now, I think it's time to definitely look at your bank statements. I constantly look at my bank statements, and for personal and business, and see all the direct debits, see what's going out. Is that absolutely necessary? Cross tick. Do I still use that? Look at that insurance. Even today I looked at house insurance. It was going to go up another £100 for the year, and I thought, well, let me go onto one of the comparison sites. I did that, and I got it for probably £80 cheaper than it was before. But this is probably £180 cheaper than what the provider wanted to give me for the next year. So it's very important to, when those paperwork do come in, or you see it online, it's renew your insurance, always go on the comparison sites every year and make sure that you can get the best price. In that way, saving more than could save yourself £100 a month.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with you. I think, again, possibly because of COVID, I've managed to slow down. So I do now pay attention.
Yes.
Whereas previously I was always too busy, and no doubt I was giving people hundreds of pounds.
Yes.
So this time, for the past couple of years, since COVID,
yes,
I've been looking, when my car insurance comes up, I will go on comparison sites. I never used to do that before.
Okay. Yeah.
I used to just pay it.
Yes. And that's not the way they rely on us to do that, and not look at our stuff. And that's how, as my dad always says, why you give it to the big companies? They have enough already. Look after yourself, and make sure you look at the detail. It is looking at the detail. It's looking at, okay, even with the business, yes, you might have to pay certain taxes, and there's certain things that you just can't come out of. That's just how it is in the UK, and in most countries. But there could be a few things where you think, well, actually, that water bill, how much, do I need that water machine? Look at the how your clients pay you. Do you actually need what you've got there as that machine, or is there a simpler method? Look at when you come out of the contract and see, okay, is there a simpler, easier method? Because sometimes there is. Sometimes you're tied in, but other times you can look to see when you're going to due to come out, and I think start your research before, and then see if there's a better method. Even with systems, with insurance there, with electric and gas, even with the water in the centre, they wanted to put it up threefold. Last year, and I was like, well, hold on, what is this for? Why? And they had changed provider, so it had gone up. But I said, well, I didn't know that, and I'm not signing up for that. So I found a different provider, and again save myself, you know, £100 a month at least.
Oh, wow.
So it's very important, you know, even every 6 months, but definitely every year, to
Mm.
review all your
Yeah,
outgoings in
yeah,
particular.
yeah.
When it comes to incomings, I mean, your revenue is again to look and see, how can I just raise it a little bit? It's not necessarily raising the prices, because we've decided to fix our prices for the time being. I'm not sure how long that is going to last, unfortunately, but we really have always try and look after our clients, because we know everyone's feeling the pinch at the same time. But it's important to then look and see other ways to increase income. Is there another contract we can get, for example? Is there a corporate client that we can go and send therapists to, which we used to a lot more, but that piece of work has really dropped. But it's again to maybe look at that and say, okay, let me say hello again to people and say, we're here, we can send therapists to you for your staff, you know, things like that. And on a personal level, for a lot of people, it's a second job or a third job or a fourth job, you know, for some people. And for others, it's okay, what have I got in my home that I can sell? You know, there's things at home that you're not using at all, whether it's anything from your old mobile phones, if they're not too dated, to some of your clothing that can be sent, you know, again, sold online very easily. There are little ways we can get an extra £10, £20, and you think, well, actually that £30 could be a week's shopping money for food, you know. So it's vital that we review our incomes and expenses across the board.
Okay, well, okay, that makes absolute sense. What are your thoughts about debt? And you know, we were talking earlier, and you were talking about ways in which one can reduce spending. What are your thoughts about that? Debt and reducing spending? Because to be honest with you, when I think about, you know, everything is going up,
Yes.
yet we're still being marketed to as though we've got an abundance of cash. I'm not entirely sure we're expected to get it.
Yes.
But I do think, I have a sense that people are getting a lot wiser about spending.
Yes. I think they are. I think across the board they are. I mean, in the announcement today in the mini budget, they were saying, oh, you know, the effect of increasing 700,000 around that figure, 700,000 people's salary is going to affect the nation. And a lot of people were poo-pooing that to say, well, actually, the people that, you know, do earn over 150,000, they don't necessarily need the money. And a lot of them coming on to LBC were saying, well, actually, we don't need the money. It needs to go to people that need it the most. And so whether or not that would make them spend more, they said, well, it doesn't necessarily, because they're already being quite stringent themselves. They're already being quite frugal. So no matter what level you're on, whether you earn 5,000 or, you know, 300,000, you know, a lot of people are being more frugal with their money. It's just that obviously some have more options because they have more money. So it's about your options, looking at it, not looking at the next person, but looking at your own situation and saying, what are my options to do with this amount of money? So yes, it can be used in a spreadsheet, but you can just use a piece of paper. This is my income for the month. These are my expenditures. What do I absolutely need to spend on, which is obviously rent, you know, and for businesses rates and, you know, insurance, you know, your electric, you know, your gas, water, council tax, you know, for personal. After that, what is it I absolutely need to spend on? I know a lot of people are doing this already, but then you look at the food bill and think, well, you know, I made a conscious decision not to shop in certain food shops some time ago. And I only went in there the other day to get a actually non-alcoholic cordial drink, because I know that they have it. But at the end of the day, I said to myself, I'm going to shop in, which I always did anyway, looking at value for money in the shops that have more value for money, particularly food shops. And we all know what they are in the UK. So it's very important to continue to look at those shops and shop there. So that, you know, your weekly food shop spend will be much less. There are ways to consciously do it rather than, again, using the car to tap. When we use the car to tap all the time, it's a way that we unconsciously spending money, whether it be on that. Someone said the other day about a chai latte, £3.40. I said, that's still £3.40. That's, you could buy how many baby formula for that, you know, pouches that are already made. And I can't remember, they said probably 5 or something, whatever it was. And I'm like, look, you know, feed your baby rather than having a chai latte, and your money will stretch further. So it's about the conscious decisions that we make. We have a choice with what we do with the rest of it. A lot of people might be shouting, I know I don't have a choice. Obviously, it's got to go on food, and that's it. and you got to feed your children and that's it, we're like, that's good. You might not have anything left on after that, but for those that do have a little bit left, again, what do you do with that? There are ways, and there's, you know, places like Money Helper, which are government led, or things online that you can look up and see, well, put your budget in, put your bank statement in, and okay, this is my income, this is my expense, and it will throw out a budget for you, or it will throw out, this is, you know, actually that's why I'm in debt, because I'm spending more than I'm got coming in. And so there are a lot of
I
things
must get the
online that
link.
can help you these
Yeah, I
days
must
to
get the link from you
put
for
it
that.
put it on there,
Yeah.
and it will throw out what your spend is, and you might be surprised. You might see, oh, I got extra £100, or no, I'm overspending every month by £200, no wonder I'm in debt. You know, I have people talking to say, well, oh, I'm in debt, so I'm going to use this money lender, and it's 500, was it 500% at least interest. I'm like, why did you do that? Oh, because they were as you said, throwing money at me. And I said, well, that's not the best way to do it. If you want to do it, go to your bank and try and you either get a loan, or you increase your overdraft. You know, overdrafts these days are very expensive as well. So debt, as far as personal is concerned, fine. If you're going to buy a car, that you're going to do it on a monthly basis, so that, you know, you've got it more controlled in the sense of your spend. But as far as personally is concerned, not to have a debt. You know, so you start with your highest interest rate and you start paying off a little extra £10 on that one, and then you go to the next one, your next card, or the next debt, and try and pay it down. Fine, mortgage debt, okay, that's how it is in this country. As far as debt is concerned for business, a different thing, because this country is driven by debt, really, and they expect you to go into debt, especially for your mortgage, but also for your business. For business, if you borrow money, that's fine, but again, just check the interest rate, that is a reasonable rate that you can you know, give it back on a regular basis, and that you can afford that on a regular monthly basis. And it's okay, because at the end of the day, if you're invested in your business, you expect it to grow, you're invested in people, your staff, then that's a risk that you need to look at, and it may be worth taking, because in the end you're increasing your revenue, or you're buying an asset that's going to actually bring you money on a regular basis, on a monthly basis. So in that way, that is good debt to have. But it's still then to just pay down that debt at some stage. But it's good debt if for example, again, you're going into property, that you know that property is going to give you a certain amount of income per month, that's going to boost your income. If people are in that position, then again, there's good debt and bad debt per se in this country.
Wow. Okay. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
So you've given us really a sense of both sides of the coin. Talked about personal debt, you've talked about personal finances to some extent, and for people who have businesses and so on, you've given us a bit of an overview of that. In terms of your own sort of company, how do you help people navigate some of these challenges? I know you're dealing with the mind as well as you know, the practical side.
Yeah.
What's your mission? What's your message?
I think each one teach one, I think would be a good one.
Yeah.
I think if we can help to hold up somebody throughout whatever transition they're going through in their life, even if they come for us, we get certain clients that might come for us for 6 weeks or 6 months or a year, you know, and there's others that are, you know, just regular with us, and you never see them again. But you know, during that time they're going through a really difficult spot, and you might help to hold them up. By them coming in for a physical treatment. These are massages, reflexology, acupuncture, etc. That might be dealing with physical treatments, but also symptoms, but also for some that are coming in for counselling or mind-body therapy treatment, we call it, or mind-body tuning is another one that Devon has created, whereby it's more of a passive movement that where we need people to feel themselves and feel that they're in their body and be in the now, and helping them to breathe now. So if we know that we can help them through that transition in their life, or that period in their life, then we hope that they can then go on to help somebody else, and to teach somebody else, and to uplift somebody else, and to show somebody else how to be resilient as well. Yeah.
Cool. Well, Karen, thank you so much. I'm sure we will have other chats in the future, but there's a lot to absorb there that you shared with us today. Are you, I mean, you're based in Forest Hill?
Forest Hill, London, SE23, yeah.
SE23.
That's the literal physical centre, but we do Zooms as well as
That's what I
workshops
was
and
going to
things like
ask
that.
you.
Yeah.
Do you do virtual stuff? Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask. Okay.
Yes.
And what I'll do obviously is put the links to your organization in the show notes, and that will be really, really helpful. I'll ping you an email
Yeah.
when we finish, just to get all the links so I can put
Okay.
everything in accurately.
Yeah.
As we move to wrap up, are there any messages or any words of wisdom or advice or whatever that you'd like to share as we close?
I would say what we've got in the book, Building Life Muscles, I think even for myself, I should remind myself just sometimes just to stop, breathe, and reset. So it's a reset in here mentally. Sometimes it's a reset in physically, to take yourself out of that situation physically and go into nature and go for your walk or go swim or do a physical activity. Ring a friend, to laugh, to do, read a book or put on some music, is to take yourself physically out of that state of mind, whereby we might be going into worry or anxiety or spiraling into what I'm going to do or how I'm going to manage, and or constantly staying in a state of I haven't got enough, I'm not enough, all the things that can come with that. Again, it's just to look and see, going deeper into that, you see, obviously what triggers that, but also at this point right now, just stop, breathe, and reset and start again.
Thank you. That's brilliant. And I think, especially in the times that we're in at the moment, which are so anxiety provoking, that is absolutely excellent advice.
Yes.
Well, Karen Burke, it was lovely speaking with you. You take good care, and
Thank you.
we will meet up again.
Yes, I'm sure. Thank you so much, Sylvia.